129. There we go. Let's dismiss this. Let's turn this on. Let's check to make sure it's working. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob the Canadian. I am going to try and teach you about patterns and shapes today. Give me 1 second to make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to be. It says it is, so I usually believe it, but I do like to double check. In English, when you double check something, you make sure 2 times that it's working. Well, there we go. Awesome. Everything's working the way it's supposed to. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about patterns and shapes. If you're wondering where I got the idea for this lesson, I'll give you a sneak peek. I walked by Walter's dog dish the other day and I thought, that's cool. It's a spiral. And then I thought to myself, I don't think I've taught the word spiral. I should think of 25 or 30 other words that we use to talk about patterns and shapes that we see around us. And it was actually pretty easy to think of that many. So in this lesson, in this English lesson, we're going to learn about patterns and shapes, things like mosaics and mazes and spirals and swirls. And I don't want to give too much away, but I think you will enjoy the lesson. So once again, welcome to this English lesson about patterns and shapes. Well, hey, how's everybody doing? I hope you're having a good day. If you're watching this at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's live. I'm literally sitting here in my living room teaching you English and enjoying myself. Let me double check the stream. Let me double check the camera focus. Camera is doing what it's supposed to do. That's awesome. Hello to Freddie Wolf, American English with Brent, Hafiez, Sital, Unabi, John Wedge, Kania, Freddie Wolf. Did I say hi to Freddie twice? Deux fois. Sibelk, Kaka, Cecilia, Key Park is here as well. Good to see you. Let me scroll back. Know that. Aerosmith 77, Unabi, Uliana, lots of familiar faces. Good to see all of you. I think this will be a fun lesson. I do enjoy talking about a variety of things, if you haven't noticed. And patterns and shapes, I think, will be a fun one. I hope it's not one of those live streams where my nose is itchy all the time. Those are very challenging. Hello to Ralph. Ralph is saying hit the like button or the thumbs up button. I do really appreciate that. I saw one streamer once say they would start the stream once it got 100 likes. And I'm not going to do that. But if you appreciate my lessons and you don't mind, please click the thumbs up button that you see below. I always do appreciate that. Sandy says the picture of today's topic is like what I watch in an eyesight check. Oh yes. Sometimes when you get your eyes checked, you have to look at different shapes and patterns and those kinds of things. But anyways, what should I tell you? If you have questions, please use the link that's in the chat from Nightbot or in the description below. Click it. It'll take you to a Google form. Fill it out, ask your question, and please try to ask questions about patterns and shapes. It's nice for everyone if we stay on topic. Hello to H hash Seknun. Burgit's here as well. Good to see you, Burgit. Gata Helena is here. Very cool. And don't forget, about halfway through, I will give away a free channel membership. Mei Hui says it's 8:30 p.m. where I am. Perfect time for me. Oh, the other side of the world. Okay, let me have a sip of water. I have my large yellow glass today. It has no shape or pattern, but here we go. Spiral, a shape that circles around and moves inward or outward. So this is a classic spiral. A spiral goes in a circle, but slowly gets smaller. Although if you start in the middle and describe it, it goes in a circle and slowly gets bigger. The reason I did this lesson is because Walter has a dog dish that looks like this. The reason it's in the shape of a spiral is because he eats too fast. If we give him a normal dog dish or a normal dog bowl, he, what we would say, wolfs his food down too quickly. I think sometimes dogs don't think when they do things. So we bought a spiral dog dish. What this does is it makes it more challenging for him to get his food. It slows him down quite a bit. He still eats all of it, but I think it's a little more like a game now for him. So a spiral. Exactly what you are seeing here, a shape that circles around and moves inward or outward. And fun fact, if you spin a spiral, it's quite mesmerizing. When something is mesmerizing, it means you like to look at it. Loop, a shape or line that curves around and crosses or connects back to itself. So if you look at the end of this string, you'll see that there is a loop on the end. Sometimes when you're working with string or rope, you will put a loop on the end. I'm trying to see, I think this might be fishing line, but you might put a loop on the end for various reasons. And this little thing on the end is a loop. The string goes around and either crosses over or connects back to itself with a knot. I'll talk about that later. And then you have on the end what we call a loop, a shape or line that curves around and crosses or connects back to itself. Lattice. So let me say that again, lattice. Now we eat lettuce, but this pattern is a lattice. So I hope you can hear the difference. A pattern made of crossed lines or strips with open spaces. You will often see lattice when you sit on someone's deck. They might have a fence that's made of lattice, which is pieces of wood that cross, a pattern made of crossed lines or strips with open spaces. Or they might have something like this. They have some planters, and it looks like the plants, some are vines, and they are growing up the lattice. Notice I'm using this word in two ways. The pattern is called a lattice, and the actual, like if you go to the hardware store, you can ask for lattice, and they will give you that type of wood where it's all connected together. But generally, we use that word to describe any shape where two things are kind of woven together to make a pattern like that. Lattice. Maze. A confusing pattern of paths with many turns and dead ends. So a dead end is when you go down a road or street and it ends. You can't continue. You have to turn around in order to leave. A maze has a lot of turns, paths, and dead ends. If you ever had a book as a child with different kinds of word puzzles and other puzzles in it, it most likely had some mazes where you had to use a pencil to find your way from one end of the maze to another. I imagine some of you right now are looking at this maze and trying to find your way through. I just did. It is solvable, but I can't put my finger on the screen. I think there used to be, is there a way for me to get my mouse on the screen? I don't remember. Anyways, a maze, a confusing pattern of paths with many turns and dead ends. Some farmers will make a corn maze or a sunflower maze, although corn grows taller, so it's better. So anyways, a confusing pattern of paths with many dead ends, or many turns and dead ends. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm just going to put someone maybe in a timeout in the chat. Let me do this. Put user in timeout. We're going 10 minutes. So please use the chat for enjoyable English conversations with each other. If you want to contact me, please use the form. And if I have time, I will respond to you. Brent in the chat is saying, I don't want to speak for Bob, but he's pretty busy. Since you teach English, you're barking up the wrong tree. Yes, just a little bit. Anyways, sorry for that little diversion. Let's get back to the lesson. Wave, a smooth moving shape that rises and falls. So, of course, when you go to the ocean, you will see waves in the water, but we also have other waves. There's radio waves, there's X-rays, I think this might be a sine wave. So when you study math, you might look at a sine wave, which is a smooth moving shape that rises and falls. Pretty fun. This is also a wave, but not the kind that we're talking about. So wave, I'm gonna guess this is a sine wave because I think that's what I searched for. A smooth moving shape that rises and falls. Swirl. So this was the best example I could find for swirl. In Ontario, Canada, and in other parts of the world, you can get what we call soft serve ice cream. And when they put the soft serve ice cream into a bowl or into a cone, they will use a twisting circular movement and it creates this pattern. Sometimes this is even called swirled ice cream, or they serve it on a cone in a swirl. But if you look, it does go around. It's kind of like, it's similar to a spiral, I guess, except it can build up. But this is the best example I can come up with. A twisting circular movement or pattern that looks exactly like this. And in this case is also extremely tasty and not good for you. Coil, something wound into a series of circles or rings. So notice the second word is wound, which indicates the verb to basically take something and do this, okay? And it's not necessarily a spring. So a spring is similar, but when you compress the spring, it bounces back. A coil doesn't necessarily do that. I'm getting very technical, I'm sorry, but this is a coil. This is actually copper wire, and you can use the verb as well. The copper wire is coiled around, or you can coil the copper wire around something like this. So coil, something wound into a series of circles or rings. And then helix. I think most of us are familiar with the double helix, but a helix is a spiral shape that moves upward or downward like a spring. This word is not used a lot in the English language, except to talk about our DNA and to talk about the double helix, which is, I guess, two helixes that go around each other that are connected. So helix, a spiral shape that moves upward or downward like a spring. Hey, let's do some questions for a bit. Let me just scroll back. I wanted to read in the chat what was happening. Lots of fun stuff. Let me get the first question on the screen. Oh, there's lots of questions. I should have a sip of water. Usually I check the chat and say hi to any other members that have popped in. Mode is here. Good to see you, Mode. Eggs. Burgett I said hi to. Unabi I said hi to, but lots of familiar faces now. Mode says, oh, that's right. Okay, on the phone, hard to do chat and tag people. I think that's the problem with phones. Phones are great, but sometimes a computer can be a better way to do things. Hopefully I didn't skip one. I'm clicking too fast here. Nope, I'm doing well. Okay. From Know That. Hello, Bob. Apart from plaid, do you have a favorite pattern or shape that you're especially fond of? Thanks in advance, Bob. So when I look at my list, coming up is something called a mosaic. Very cool pattern. I don't really like zigzags. Coming up as well, we have polka dot. That's also another fun pattern. We'll see. I would say probably things that are a mosaic, and I will explain more later what that is, but pretty fun pattern. From Know That as well, Bob, when strong wind moves through tall grass and you see those bright lines moving, would you also call that a ripple? Or is there another word for it? Thanks, Bob. I would probably call it an undulation. When you see a wheat field or a barley field or a tall grass field where the wind is moving it and making this really cool pattern, we would probably say that it is an undulation or it is undulating. Let me get that, undulate. It's a tricky word. I make sure I'm actually saying it right. Let me get my earbuds here. Undulate. Okay, so undulate is a verb meaning to move or be shaped with a smooth wave-like rising and falling motion. Often used to describe water ripples, wheat fields, hills, grass fields, flags, etc. So again, let me explain. When you see a wheat field or grass field moving in the wind, we would probably say it is undulating. I actually don't know if anyone would really say that. They would probably say it's waving in the wind, but the correct term would be undulate. I should put that in the chat. Undulate. Did I type that right? What a strange word. Lots of strange words in English. From Judith, hi Bob, what kind of pattern is the most important in your life? Why is it adding something to your life? Thank you. I like plaid. So I like plaid because I like the pattern. It's pleasing. If you're wondering what plaid is, it's whenever a shirt has squares made up of lines. So this is pretty minimal in terms of plaid. You can have a lot more of a complex plaid shirt, but I would say I do enjoy plaid. From Judith, hi Bob. Every pattern has a shape and every shape can have a pattern. Are there more differences between the two? Thank you. So one of the things is shape is like the overall structure of it, whereas pattern might be what the surface looks like. So let me explain. A ball has the shape of basically a sphere, but a soccer ball has a pattern on it of, I think, five-sided. Is it five-sided? I have to look at a soccer ball, but it has, so the shape refers to the entire, what it actually looks like. And the pattern is what the surface of the object looks like. From Unsel. Hi, Mr. Bob. Ancient spiral symbols are fascinating, aren't they? Like crop circles. They're not quite spirals, but they are fascinating. What do you think about the idea that ancient people had a connection with space? You're awesome. Thanks. I will certainly, here's what I will say. When you live out in the country like I do, and when you go outside on a summer night, if I think of a world where there's no TV, there's no phones, there's no technology, all you basically have is fire. When you look up at the night sky on a clear night, it is very, very awesome looking. And it seems mysterious and awesome and beautiful. I think now we live in a world where there's so many screens and other things to look at and so many things to do. We often forget to look up at the night sky, but it is beautiful. It even has a bit of like some power to it. So I can see how ancient people believed a lot of things, for example. From Unabi. Great topic, by the way. Did you notice fractal patterns are pretty common in nature? For example, tree leaves and some petals often have fractal shapes on their surface. I didn't include fractals in this, but if you don't know what fractals are, it's a mathematically generated pattern using a computer usually because it's complex. And the more you zoom in, the pattern kind of layers and repeats itself. Like you can continue to zoom in on a fractal and the pattern will continue to grow The pattern just has enormous depth. Very cool for computer game graphics and other applications. From Judith, what kind of pattern is the most beautiful according to your opinion? I like honeycombs. I'm going to talk about those in a bit. That's pretty cool. This is a little off topic possibly, but Alexander says, hi, would you find strange that American call a game look like rugby as football? It's not only use mostly hands rather than foots, but also call as a ball a melon. I find the whole football, soccer, rugby, American football, Australian, is there Australian style football too? Australian rules football. They should all just have different names. It would be very helpful for me, especially. Know that. Which type of password do you use? Pattern or code? Interesting. The passwords I create, this is all the information I'm going to give you. The passwords I create are very long, very intricate, contain no patterns, and contain lots of letters, capital letters, numbers, and symbols. And I usually follow the current recommendations. So that's all I'll tell you. I make as best a passwords as I can in this current world. One more question and we'll get back to the lesson from Al Shaima. How can I improve my English quickly, especially in listening and speaking? I am 31 and in Egypt. So one of the benefits that you have is that you are relatively young compared to me. I know 31 might seem old, but not to me. And so I think you probably can learn more quickly than I could. And so I would just strongly encourage you to do as much listening as you can. The internet provides so many resources for listening to English content. Do as much as you can. Music, YouTube videos, songs, TV shows, movies, whatever you can find, podcasts. In terms of the speaking, I continue to just recommend that you find an English speaking partner and you will probably need to pay them. I'm convinced that learning English can be done 90% for free using the internet. You can find resources to read. You can practice your listening. You can practice your writing. But when it comes to practicing your speaking, you might need to hire somebody. It's just part of the deal. Bridget, The Scots have many different plaids on their kilts, depending on which family or clan. Yes, so if you research Scotland and you research plaid and kilts, you'll know that there are people who wear a certain type of pattern. I think it might be, is it a tartan? Let me just check here. What is a tartan? I don't want to say the wrong word. A tartan is a pattern cloth traditionally woven from wool, featuring crisscrossed horizontal and vertical bands in multiple colors. Deeply rooted in Scottish heritage, it is often used to represent specific clans. So not to be confused, plaid is any kind of shirt with crossed lines. Tartan is a specific kind of plaid. Hopefully there's no Scottish people here getting angry if I explain it wrong. That you would find in Scotland. Let's see here. From who's behind door? I saw someone there. So we have smoked glass on the door, or what we call privacy glass, because sometimes Jen and my kids are leaving and our front door is actually that way. So they do have to walk by that door and they don't want to be in the live stream. So that's what's happening there. And then lastly, any Fortnite players here, small correction, players should be plural. I don't know. It's a little early in the morning, I think, to be playing Fortnite. Let me see here. Mode says, hit the like button if you want to see Bob do a whole video wearing a Scottish kilt. Is that what some people do? They like, if this video gets 5,000 thumbs up, I'll do the next video wearing a football helmet or something like that. I don't know. Promises, right? Oh, by the way, I made a promise a week ago to respond to all the comments on the video, Why Are You Learning English? I'm about halfway. I'm doing 20 to 30 replies a day, and I am intent on getting all of those replied. Although when I said I was going to reply to all the comments, there's now like 400 comments, I think, on that video. But I think I'm halfway, and I'm going to keep at it. Okay, I had a sip of water. It's 10:02. Let's get back to the lesson. Vortex, a spinning movement of air or liquid around a center point. When you pull the plug out of the bottom of your sink, and as the water starts to drain, it will eventually create a vortex. And it will spin one way if you're in the northern hemisphere, and it will spin the other way if you're in the southern hemisphere. I believe I'm correct there. Remember, this is an English lesson, not a science lesson. But yes, when you see this, we can also use the word swirl in this case. When you see the water swirl around the bottom of the sink, that is a vortex. We also use this to describe a weather system here in Canada. Sometimes a swirling air mass comes from the north in the winter, and we call it a polar vortex, and it makes it very, very cold. But vortex, a spinning movement of air or liquid around a center point. And notice Bob the Canadian spelt center the American way here. I apologize. That happens sometimes. It's just the way it is. Zigzag, a line or pattern with sharp turns in different directions. This shirt would drive me crazy. If I saw someone wearing this shirt, it would make my eyes, like it would just make me feel strange. I have trouble looking at it right now. But you can see that the line zigzags. The line goes up and down. It takes sharp turns in different directions, and they are all the same. Like, it's not random or chaotic. It's definitely a very logical, orderly pattern of a white line or a black line going up and down, and then a yellow line below it. So zigzag, a line or pattern with sharp turns in different directions. Ripple, a small wave or series of small waves on a surface. That's a fun word to say, ripple. When you throw a stone into water, it will make ripples. The water will ripple. And a ripple, basically, you'll see a circle expand and then another circle expand and another circle expand. They're all small waves. If you were to look at it from the side, you would see the wave pattern. But ripple, a small wave or series of small waves on a surface, usually in a circle, although it doesn't have to be in a circle. But this would be the best example I can think of. When you throw a rock in, there are We would maybe call them concentric circles where they ripple out. Curve, a line that bends smoothly instead of being straight. People who have really expensive sports cars would love a road that has a curve in it or lots of curves because I think they enjoy pretending they're race car drivers going around the curves. But yes, a curve is a line that bends smoothly instead of being straight. Arc. So when I was researching this one, first of all, en français, on dit arc-en-ciel. So an arc is a perfectly curved line. Technically, an arc is part of a circle. But when you look at a rainbow, there's no other part, to my knowledge, of the shape. There's just the arc in the sky, arc-en-ciel. So here we have an arc, a perfectly curved line. What that means is it's not a curved line that has some oddness to it. It's like part of a circle. It's perfect from one end to the other. And you get beautiful things like a rainbow, which is an arc, a perfectly curved line. This person seems very happy. I think if you look in the distance, the person in blue has maybe found the pot of gold that they say is at the end of the rainbow. I've never found it. I've never been able to find the end of the rainbow, but apparently there's a pot of gold there. Twist, a shape formed by turning or winding something. That's why we call this a twist tie. So if you have a little piece of wire, it's kind of like wire in the middle of some paper or plastic, and it often comes on the end of a loaf of bread on the plastic bag. There's a twist tie. We call it a twist tie because you twist it and it forms that shape. So twist, a shape formed by turning or winding something. There's a lot of things in the world where you will twist. It's even an action not related to the shape or pattern where you twist to get the lid off of something. But this would be a good explanation of twist as a shape or pattern. It's a shape formed by turning or winding something. A knot, I think we're all familiar with this, a fastening made by tying something into loops. So if you have ever tied your shoes, you know how to make a knot. If you have ever had a rope and had to make sure your boat doesn't sail away by itself, you need to tie a knot when you come to the dock. So a knot, a fastening made by tying something into loops. And there are many different types of knots in the world. Grid, a pattern of straight crossing lines that form squares or rectangles. This person has basically a rubber mat that has a grid on it, and they are cutting out different shapes from paper, and the grid probably helps them make every shape the correct size and helps them cut in the right direction. So if you ever do crafts, you're probably familiar with this. If you have ever done graphing by hand with a pencil in math, you probably use what's called graph paper. Graph paper has a series of lines that form a grid, and every single box on the grid is exactly the same size. So grid, a pattern of straight crossing lines that form squares or rectangles. In the chat, someone says, is it alive? This is Yipengeshi. Yes, it's live, Yipengeshi. Definitely live. Hafia says arc and twist can be for storyline, a story arc or a plot twist. English is weird. You are correct. That is true as well. Web, you are probably familiar with this one as well. A net-like pattern of connected lines or threads. This is a spider web. If you have ever watched any of the Spider-Man movies, you know that Spider-Man shoots webs as well. Although he tends to shoot like straight strings. I don't know if he often makes an actual web like a spider, but this is a web, a net-like pattern of connected lines or threads. I'm always amazed that at night in our barn, there will be places where there are no spider webs, and the next morning there will be a spider web. So during the night, a spider created a net-like pattern of connected lines or threads. and then they hopefully can catch a few flies or mosquitoes, particularly mosquitoes. I strongly encourage all spiders to make webs to catch mosquitoes. That would be the best thing in my opinion. Mosaic, a picture or pattern made from many small colored pieces. So you'll often see this in flooring. People will have a floor in their house, or maybe they'll have an outdoor seating area where they've gotten stones or tiles or other small colorful things like rocks, and they've made a mosaic. Basically, they've made a picture or pattern from many small colored pieces. Let me say the word again, mosaic. It's a fun word to say as well. This is a mosaic. This is a very cool pattern made from small colored pieces. Honeycomb, a pattern of connected six-sided shapes like a beehive. So if you've ever seen a beehive, they build what's called a honeycomb. And inside the honeycomb, I don't know how they exactly do this. Again, this isn't a science lesson, but the honeycomb is used to store honey for future use, as well as other things. I'm not sure if you're born in a honeycomb. Anyways, someone who's more of a bee expert could tell us what is happening there. But this is a pattern that looks like a beehive. So we call it a honeycomb pattern. So a pattern of connected six-sided shapes like a beehive. And then plaid, a pattern of crossed horizontal and vertical stripes or lines, which makes a beautiful pattern. This is actually a very fashionable colored shirt right now in Canada. Although with spring coming, less people are wearing these, but certainly like oranges, burnt oranges and deep yellows and black has become a fashionable thing to wear. But this we would call a plaid shirt, a pattern of crossed horizontal and vertical shapes. Very cool. I should start dressing in a more fashionable way, and then I would just wear this shirt during the live lesson. Hey, we had a few people in the chat asking if, whoa, what's happening? Is Unsel at it again? Unsel has returned. Let's see. No, that says Bob certainly has a mosaic in one of his bathrooms, probably handmade. I don't. We have a vinyl floor in our bathrooms. Unsel, thank you once again for your generosity. If you are one of the 20 people that Unsel has gifted a membership to, you can now access the members only section of this YouTube channel. If you go to the section that says posts, you will see all of the members only content. So thank you, Unsel, for that. That is awesome. I am also going to give away one membership. My generosity is somewhat limited, but I will give away a single membership. I feel kind of bad now, but that's okay. I try to do this every week. Some weeks I forget. But I will give away a gift membership. So if you have received a gift membership from Unsel, check the post section. If you got one from me, Ray Shellis, you can see all the members only content. So what is members only content? You might be wondering as I go in and go to members only chat mode, I will explain. If you are a member, what do you get? You get an extra video every Wednesday called Wednesdays with Bob. Sometimes they're quite entertaining. Sometimes they're probably boring, but it's an extra video that you can use for listening practice and to get to know me better. You get a lesson plan on Monday morning, a written lesson plan, which kind of describes some of the things I've been doing, things you can do to learn some new words and phrases, and some activities you can do throughout the week to practice your English. You also get your name in green during a live lesson, like most people in the chat. And you get a little crown beside your name that changes over time until eventually you get the 6-month crown. So thank you to all of you who are members. Let's do members only chat right now. I will start in the chat. I'll bounce back and forth. And if you are wondering, what about the rest of the lesson? It will continue in 8 minutes. Here we go. Know that. Hey, Bob, what are your plans for today or this weekend? Do you have anything special on your to-do list? A heartfelt thank you as always. I have a Preply sponsored video to create. I need to do it tomorrow. It needs to be released by Tuesday. So I'm heading out tomorrow to make an English lesson on location somewhere. Exciting. So you'll have to wait till Tuesday to see where. Whenever Preply sponsors a lesson, I usually try to do a lesson. I go to my list of on location. So I did the food court, I did the airport, and I have an idea for tomorrow. I won't get kicked out. I'm pretty sure the place I'm going, I'm allowed to make a lesson. So that's number one. Number two, well, I have a bit of paperwork to do for the businesses to drop off at the account. Everything is ready, but I have some office work to do. John Wedge says, hello folks, don't forget to give a thumbs up. No question here. No questions, Bob, just listening and having fun. Well, that's awesome. And then Cy Sandy says, hi, I have hit the like button. Good job. Hafiz, when I saw the title of this lesson, the word rotund comes to mind. A description to describe me, myself, and I, LOL. So if you are rotund, you are larger than the average person. That would be rotund. And there's also the word rotunda. Let's see, rotund versus rotunda. So rotund is an adjective describing something, particularly a person, round and plump. A rotunda is a noun referring to a round building or room, often with a domed roof. So a couple different, you add an A and it's a different word in English, right? Let's see here. Cy Sandy says, hi, Bob. When you talk about pattern and shape, I think of church or cathedral. Is there some specific pattern or shape to build them? I like mosaic tile in daily life. I think if I think of old churches and cathedrals, I often think of arch. So arc to describe a rainbow, but arch in building, notice the CH at the end, at the top of a doorway if you have an arch. My doorways do not have an arch. One moment, I think I'm going to sneeze, so I'm going to go to mute for a sec. I think I'm good. I didn't actually sneeze, but I think it's got away. Know that. You once mentioned that you learned how to sew a button back on. Are there any other sewing or stitching techniques you can do? Thanks, Bob. I learned a little bit of cross-stitching when I was in grade 2 or 3. That's where you can put I think I made like a little dog where you use different color thread, but I don't really know how to do that anymore. Pretty well. Arc-en-ciel complète dans le ciel est superbe à contempler, mais tellement rare à observer. Malheureusement, il est trop souvent que partiel. So notice how hard it is for me to say my R's in French, but merci beaucoup, Freddy. Yes. They are beautiful, aren't they? They're definitely worth contemplating, sitting and looking at. Yep. How's morning going, Bob? Do you usually travel to the US from where you live? I have traveled to the US. I actually was in the US a few months ago visiting family. I do have some family in Michigan, which is common. It's common for Canadians and Americans to have relatives in the other country. Not a lot, but I know Brent has relatives in Canada indirectly. And also, I have relatives who are American. Maybe that's a better way to describe it. Pretty common. Let's see here. From Freddie Wolf, Bob, what do you call the shape on a zebra's fur? We would call them striped. I think I'm getting to that. I would say a zebra is striped. Know that. How are your hemoglobin levels doing, Bob? I think pretty good. Have you had another appointment to check on them in the meantime? And how have you been overall? I have been energetic. I feel good. I've been sleeping good. I'm starting to exercise more. So I think things are good. I don't have another appointment until the summer. Mode, whoa, ever since Bob made it a habit to gift a membership, every live stream people start gifting a lot more often. It's a ripple effect, eh? So great use of the word ripple and the phrase ripple effect. And you're right, it is a ripple effect. I think every live stream, someone has gifted memberships to other people. So thank you. I appreciate it. From Key Park, this lesson reminds me of a book I read in college, A Pattern Language. Does anybody know that? I do not. I should check that out. I think Washington, D.C. is getting ready to build the Arc de Triomphe. Puis en France, il y a Arc de Triomphe. At Paris, there's an Arc de, basically the Triumph Arc, if you want to translate it. And Brent is saying that Trump is going to build one called the Arc de Trump. There we go. Brent, that's true. I have family from Canada, so we get to have 2 Thanksgivings in the fall. And I think it's probably more common for people who live close to the border. So Brent lives relatively close to the Canadian border. It's still a hike. It's not just, a 10-minute trip or something. And I live 45 minutes from the American border. And so it becomes common that, like, if you have 50 people in your extended family, there's a good chance someone's going to be married to an American. It's a good chance an American and Canadian are going to be married in the mix. Know that. Can the expressions to set off and to set out be used interchangeably, or do they convey different meanings? And thanks a lot for answering my questions, Bobby. So I'm going to set off on a trip. I'm going to set out on a trip. You could use those interchangeably, but set off has other meanings. You can set off an alarm. You can set off a guard dog. Like, oh, I was walking through and I set off the dog. Maybe that's a little more rare, but definitely you can set off an alarm. Freddie, Bob, where's your outside camera? Have you forgotten to connect it? What's the weather outside currently? Why do I say outside? I'm crazy. The weather inside seems good. I don't usually hook my outside camera up for the Friday lessons, but I guess I could start doing that. Mode says, thank you for the nice topic, Mr. Bob. How would you describe the line that shows up in an ECG? Jagged? Is that what an uneven zigzag called? Yeah. Like you're talking about like beep, beep, beep. So when you get an ECG or you're on a heart rate monitor, I would probably call it a jagged line. Yes, that would probably be the best. It's not a wave, right? It's not a nice, it's kind of a zigzag, but jagged would probably be a good word. Brett says, I live an hour and a half from Quebec. Oui. Hafiez, anybody remember stereogram magic eye? It's a 2D pattern thing that turns 3D when you cross your eyes. The famous one is the sailboat schooner. I do remember those. I actually thought they were a scam and they weren't real. And then eventually I was able to see the image and then I believed that it was, and it was pretty cool. Hey, I'm going to turn off members only chat and get back to the lesson and have a sip of water. I feel like that was a pretty quick members only chat. So I'm just going to pause for a bit to see if any more show up in the chat before I continue. And again, if you are interested in supporting me as a creator here on YouTube teaching English, there is a join button that you can use. Some people honestly literally join for 1 or 2 months just to thank me, and I very much appreciate that. Some people become long-term members because they appreciate the content, but I do honestly appreciate everyone who joins, whether it's short-term or long-term. It allows me to have time in my day and in my week to create the content that I create as a job. I do this as a job. Probably the job, it's kind of weird to describe it as a job because I enjoy it way more than any other job I've ever had. But anyways, thanks for the support. Pretty Wolf, a plaid shirt is called chemise de boucheron. Oh yes. And know that if I'm seeing this correctly, you've already managed to work through one of the post-its. At least there's only one left hanging, if my memory serves me right. There were 3 at one point, and now I'm down to 1. I forget what this one's about. I think it's about Jen's farm website. This summer I have to revamp it or have a look at it. Yes, let's finish off the lesson. Where are we at? We're doing pretty good for time, but I should keep moving. Here we go. Paisley, a pattern with curved teardrop shapes and detailed designs. I have not seen a Paisley pattern shirt in a long time, but I did want to put this on here because I've always thought this was a very cool pattern. I have never owned a Paisley shirt, but if you see, the pattern is these teardrop shapes, and there's a very intricate, detailed design. So Paisley, a pattern with curved teardrop shapes and detailed designs. It is a pretty nice looking shirt though, but it is a little bit, in English, we might say the pattern is very busy. When you say a pattern is busy, it means like the zigzag shirt, the pattern was very busy. It's like a lot for your eyes to look at. Polka dot, a pattern made of evenly spaced round dots. So this is a polka dot hat. Sometimes polka dot is one word, but my understanding is the most correct way to write it is as 2 words. So you could have a polka dot dress, a polka dot shirt, a polka dot hat. And generally, it's not a super common pattern in fashion, but you do see it from time to time where someone is wearing something that is polka dotted. It's kind of a fun word too. A lot of these words are fun to say. Polka dot. Stripes, a pattern made of long, narrow lines. This shirt has horizontal stripes. You can also have a shirt with vertical stripes that go this way. But if they cross, it's not a striped shirt anymore. It's now plaid or has a checkered pattern. So if you've ever read the books Where's Waldo, he has a red and white shirt like this, a red and white striped shirt, which is a pattern made of long, narrow lines. Checkerboard, a pattern of alternating dark and light squares. So you can probably guess where this word comes from. If you ever play checkers or if you play the game chess, it is played on basically a board or, well, it could be cardboard, but it's checkerboard where there are black and white squares, or they can be other colors as well, red and black or something like that. But if you have pants like this, we would say the pattern is a checkerboard pattern, a pattern of alternating dark and light squares. Symmetrical and asymmetrical. Last two things. When something is symmetrical, we're saying that it is having the same shape or pattern on both sides. If you look at one side of this drawing of a tree versus the other side, they are identical. If you folded it in half, they would match perfectly. It is symmetrical. It has symmetry. That's the other word we would use. This tree, on the other hand, is asymmetrical. It's a tree where it does not have the same shape or pattern on both sides. So symmetrical, having the same shape or pattern on both sides. By the way, your face is symmetrical. One side of your face is the same as the other. And then asymmetrical, not having the same shape or pattern on both sides. Hey, that's the end of the formal lesson. No, that says Polka Dot Man. Isn't this a DC character? There was a movie with a guy who shot polka dots. Mode, polka dot is quite common in ties though. You're right, as is paisley. I think I might have a paisley tie. Yes. And then Mayhui says, paisley reminds me of microorganisms. Yes, definitely. Wow, paisley, that's not paisley for yes. Yeah, paisley, definitely. Unabi says, our faces are actually asymmetrical a little bit. Yes, if you... I don't want to use my face as an example, but my hair here looks different than here. My one eye, I think my one eye is always naturally a little bit more closed than the other. Now I'm kidding. Now it's just getting strange. And wait, is my one ear lower than... Okay, stop looking at my face. Let's do some questions and finish off the lesson. I know I have a few to go through. So Geta says, Geta Helena, I live in Armenia. So when I saw your lattice picture, I thought a great place for the grape. And how do you use such things in Canada? So those wood lattice panels, you will often see when you sit on someone's deck, which is a wooden outside seating area, usually raised off the ground. They might use it for the edge. They might have it where there are actually plants. Sometimes people have lattice above to partially shade them from the sun. But those particular types of things, I would say you would see on a deck, fence for shade, etc. Judith, hi Bob. The vortex is happening on the opposite direction on the two spheres. Do you know what happens in the northern hemisphere? Thank you. I actually can't remember. Does my sync go? I think we go this way in the northern hemisphere. We'll see. From Jeff, how's your morning going, Bob? What do you think should come first, speaking fluently or having correct pronunciation? I appreciate it. I'm very grateful for your help. Little fix there. So I often advocate everything. Sometimes people would like to know what's the most important thing to do right now. And that's okay, but you should be working on everything. So I would argue you should be practicing once a week for 10 or 15 minutes on your fluency, your ability to have a conversation. And then you should also be practicing another 10 or 15 minutes on your pronunciation. Like, it's all important, right? If you just listen, you aren't practicing your reading. If you just work on fluency, you might not be working on pronunciation. So do it all. Like, create a plan where you're intentionally working on especially the things you are weakest at. That's what I would say. Kenya, vortex is it different than swirl? That's the question. So when you pull the plug out of the bottom of your sink, the water will swirl, and we would call that a vortex. So I'm using one to describe and one to name, but that's what I would say. So very similar, if not the same thing. It's from Ilya. Do you use such words as pentagon, octagon, dodecahedron, torus, or you leave it for mathematicians and engineers? In everyday English, you will use the word pentagon. You might use the word octagon, but you won't use the other ones. Definitely not. Not a common thing. Hasham says, do you know about squircle shape? I do not. A square that's also a circle, possibly? Who knows? Unabi, just one curious fact. Two-dimensional figures turn into three-dimensional shapes. For example, square transforms into 3D cube. And then tesseract in four-dimensional space. Now we're getting a little crazy. Tesseracts are only in Marvel movies in my world. But yes, very cool. A circle is related to a sphere, right? Triangle is related to a cone. For real, are there spider webs? A little fix there in your house. Yeah, there's one on my camera. I just noticed it this morning. I can't show you, but it's between I have to dust in this room. There's a spider web right in front of me. Azad, I want to learn English in the best way possible. The best way possible is to be consistent and to stay motivated. So sometimes people are looking for the best course or the best YouTube channel or the best book. The best thing you can do to learn English, the best way possible, is to have a plan where you consistently study every day of the week, at least 5 or 6 days, and where you find ways to stay excited and motivated. Those two things work for everything in the world. You want to be in good shape, you need to be consistent and motivated. You want to learn English, you need to be consistent and motivated. Freddie Wolf says, Bob, I don't know if you have ever done a lesson about hair shapes. If not, I think there will be so many shapes to describe. Yes, the bob, long hair. Have I done a lesson on hair? I don't know if I have. Hasham says, Bob, sir, looking good in check shirt. Thank you very much. Judith, hi, Bob. Polka dot clothing is given to little girls in Hungary. Is it the same in Canada? Thanks. Children often wear polka dots. It's kind of a fun pattern. Adults, not as common, I don't think. Kathleen, how's it going, Bob? What do you think about being fluent but having poor pronunciation? Thanks a million. Well, it is an amazing thing to be fluent, and reducing your accent and pronouncing better is probably easier for you to work on. But I would definitely work on it. Okay. I like it when people develop both at the same time, but if you're fluent and your pronunciation is down here, then that is your weakest thing. So as you go through the week and you work on vocabulary and grammar and reading and writing and listening and speaking and pronunciation and fluency, you need to emphasize that one a bit more to get it in balance. Let's see. Janelle, how are you doing, Bob? What's your opinion on practicing listening with AI-generated YouTube videos and AI voices? So I'm old school. I actually believe that there's enough human content on YouTube for English learners that there's no real reason to watch an AI video unless it's teaching something that one of the humans hasn't taught. I do think there's a place in language learning for AI. I think AI can be great for English, practicing written conversations, practicing actual speaking conversations. But in terms of watching a video where something is being explained, I still prefer a human. And maybe that's just me. Maybe the younger generation will trend towards using AI a lot more for that. And again, I'm not against AI. AI is great. Like if there's an English news story that you don't understand, you can ask AI to rewrite it so it's simpler. There's a lot of things you can do with AI that are cool. But if you're just looking for listening practice, listen to a podcast, listen to an English teacher on YouTube. I just think it's going to be a little bit more acceptable. Or sorry, the next comment just cracked me up and I can't post it, but I'm going to skip it. But it is funny. It's just inappropriate. Okay. From McKenna. Hi, Bob. How can I remember, master, and become fluent in one daily conversation topic, then move on to other topics while still remembering the previous ones? So as humans, the best way to remember things is repetition. Repetition is boring, so people don't like to do it. But if you learn 10 new vocabulary words, I would argue you need to use all of them the day you learn them. You need to use all of them again sometime in the days after you learn them. And then you need to use them at least once a month for a year. And I don't know how you're going to do that. Some people literally make lists and they say, okay, I'm going to use these 20 words the next time I have a conversation with my English tutor. And then I'm going to touch on and use those words a few more times over the next months and years. But you have to make them part of at least 10 or 20 conversations where you use them, and you will most likely remember them. If you learn the word cup and you use the word cup once and then you never use it again, then a month from now, you might not remember what that is. From Victor. Professor, good morning. Are you teaching on the Preply platform? So I promote Preply. I search for your name there and I don't find you. My plan is to eventually teach on Preply when I retire from my teaching job. So I do go to work every day and I teach a high school class. So I have no immediate plans to teach online, but teaching in this way is something I might do in the future when I have more time and I'm home more. So that is the plan. And then last question from Austin. Hi, Bob. How important do you think pronunciation is for speaking English? So my feelings on that have always been this. Pronunciation is important, but it isn't the most important thing as long as people can understand you and as long as you are working on reducing your accent. So I wouldn't say this. I'm going to wait a year to practice conversation until my pronunciation is better. I think that's a bad idea. I think you should just start practicing your conversation now and improve your pronunciation as you're practicing it. So anyways, from the chat, John Wedge says, hey, Bob, by the way, I've already watched half of Jen's channel videos. Very cool. I'm loving them. You're always there helping along with your kids and Heather and her sister-in-law. That's great. It is fun. I love watching them. I get to watch them on Saturday before they come out. Sophia, thank you, Bob. It was a very interesting lesson. So many patterns and shapes to learn. Have a great day. You too. No, that says, thanks a lot for the great lesson, Bob. I wish you and your family a wonderful and relaxing Friday and weekend. Take good care of yourselves. And then Hafia says, it's already time to go. Yes, it is. And thanks to Walter for the lesson idea. Says, know that. I don't think a treat would be appropriate in his case, even though he really deserves one. Yep. So for those of you that don't know, this lesson was inspired by Walter's dog dish, which is a spiral. So that's where the idea came from. And then you can see a mysterious shape in the background because someone is probably heading out. I think it's probably Jen. Okay, a couple things before you go. Number one, this lesson, I edit out all of the viewer comments and I make it a pure lesson of 26 terms about patterns and shapes. You should rewatch it or at least re-listen to it. It will come out on YouTube. It comes out on Spotify. It comes out on Bilibili. There are many places to watch or listen to it again. It will help you remember the words you have learned. Remember, repetition is boring, but it's also important. That's my line for learning a language. So anyways, thanks for watching. I'm going to get going. Let me read through the chat again. John says, thanks for this amazing lesson. Head to Jen's channel now. Haha. Pedro says, thank you for the lesson, Bob. Just watching while doing chores here. Have a great weekend. You too. Key Park says, thanks. Uliana says, thank you so much for the great lesson. No problem. Ralph's here. Have a great weekend. Time to leave and say goodbye. Exactly. Burgett. Bye to Burgett. Key Park. Yep. John Wedge. Hafiez. Mode Eggs. Freddie Wolf. Know that. Unabi. Kate Zoo. You can tell I'm trying to get to work now, right? Sai Sandy, John Wedge. If I didn't say bye to you, I am sorry, but bye. Have a good weekend. New lesson coming out Tuesday and another live stream next week.